You know what this is because Ford has sold a billion of them. It's the Explorer and a popular SUV that's a common sight on the road. This machine has been around in some form or another since 1990, and today, Explorer is about as modern and high-tech as mainstream SUVs get. Of course, there is stiff competition, which sees Explorer competing with a long list of competitors from around the globe. So let's see what makes this one different and what makes it stand out and why you might want one. Appearance first, this is a handsome rig, a little backwoodsy looking and upscale, but not so much that anyone will think you pay for your Starbucks with loose diamonds. There's selection too, with at least 5 standard model grades offered with numerous options, packages, and accessories. This one's the $60,000 Explorer Platinum, which makes shopping easy as there are limited options and it comes pretty much fully loaded. There's 4-wheel drive, of course, everyone has that, but not everyone has a drive mode selector, like this. Twist the dial and you tell the Explorer what you're planning on driving through, snow in this case, and it customizes various systems for enhanced traction and control. You'll want to use these modes, especially the snow mode on days like this, since they do make a big difference. This is one example of how Explorer goes just a touch further than average, using a little tech and innovation to add value. Another example, look at this instrument cluster, partially analog, partially digital, and fully customizable to show you exactly what you want to see. Again, just a little bit of extra tech, but it has a nice impact, working towards an upscale modern look and some added functionalities. Best of all, the screens are framed nicely into the gauge cluster, so there's no hard break between digital and analog, it just looks cleaner that way. Or the central command interface, which is one of the best on the road. Not because it's fancy, but because it's simple, easy to navigate, fast to respond, and doesn't choke like a Commodore 64 trying to calculate the volume of the universe like earlier versions of Ford's Sync system. It's totally redone here and it works great. Quickly, you can find and manipulate just about anything you like. One more example, Explorer has a backup camera like everything else in its segment, but goes a step further, adding this washer system so you've always got a clear view out the back. More techie touches under the hood too. This is Explorer's top dog 3.5-liter EcoBoost V6, twin turbocharged for 365 horsepower and a mighty 350 pounds of torque. Now, it used to be that you needed a great big and much thirstier V8 for that sort of power output. When you drive this gently, you use less fuel more of the time, despite the big thrust available from very low revs. It's an ideal engine for someone after decent mileage, but also stacks of pulling power when needed. Note that the fuel tank is on the smaller side, so you may have to fill up more often than you like. Ultimately, most of the time, this engine is smooth and invisible and works with very minimal revs, thanks to all of that low RPM twin-turbo torque. Open it up, and it's not quite as smooth as I expect in a 60 grand vehicle, though the power is very robust. And look at this interior. If we show you mega fancy shots like this, close-up, glamorous, zooming, and getting all artsy with the focus dial, highlighting the numerous intricate details, you might even overshoot the price of this thing by 10 grand or more. The cabin looks rich with metal accenting, embossed surfaces, light years of stitching, and a playful contrast between colors and textures. They told the interior designer to make a cabin that feels and looks really swanky, and I hope that he or she got a raise. It's a nice place to be in here. And don't miss the abundant storage within close reach of the driver to keep things organized, or the massaging seats, which are a nice touch for a taste of the luxury motoring high life. Next up, a good ride, and in particular, the cruising experience. You get a commanding forward view, but without absolutely towering above the road. Explorer rides the way it looks like it rides, big and sturdy, mostly. On the highway, it's more floaty than athletic, comfort first by a landslide. Even fairly rough surfaces do little to break that though, and you hear bumps via a nicely muted rumble more than you feel them. It takes a lot to make the Explorer ride uncomfortably. Mostly you appreciate the suspension's ability to carefully filter out the worst parts of the road beneath, even on bumps that you're sure will cause a chipped tooth. Mostly it's an excellent long-haul cruiser, though some will wish for a little less wind noise, and personally, to me, the steering feels like it's made of wet shoelaces. I wish it was just a little heavier and more precise, so I'd have to spend less time adjusting its position within its lane on the highway, though this light and lazy steering setup does help make parking a cinch. Functionality, well, look at all this room in the back for cargo, or if you need to haul passengers instead of gear, some extra seating arrives with the tap of a button. Adults needn't apply though, there's just not enough room for your head or feet or anything else, really, so leave the third row seats for the kids. Plenty of space around the middle row seats though, they adjust, recline, and even have their own climate control zone. Up front, entry and exit is a little awkward for the driver. There's a strangely thick rocker panel to step over. Your leg may whack into the steering column as you board, and the footwell reminds me of a smaller sports car, not a bigger SUV. You'll wish this lower part of the driver's environment was a little bigger, more so if you're wearing heavy winter boots. Ultimately though, lots of room in most of the right areas, and perhaps Explorer is most impressive when put to use to haul two couples off to the cottage for the weekend, where there's space galore for four and their stuff. You'll get where you're going with minimal worries, even in lousy weather. Headlights, for one, are top-notch, powerful, clean white light, far-reaching illumination, and plenty of peripheral coverage are yours for the taking. And though I wish the Explorer felt a little more precise and heavy at the controls and greasy driving, it's ultimately a stable, predictable, and confidence-inspiring performer in the snow. The all-wheel drive system works fast and effectively, provided you have the right mode dialed in, and the Explorer feels fine-tuned to follow your orders without fuss. Note that this tester was wearing its winter tires, and without them you're about 200 times more likely to have an occurrence with a piece of highway infrastructure, so be sure to install yours too. Explorer did leave me wishing for a better steering feel, a slightly easier time getting in and out of the driver's seat, a little more room for my feet, and maybe a bigger gas tank. Beyond that though, it stacks up nicely as a great crossover pick at this price point for the shopper, after a significant power advantage, plenty of delightfully techy and clever touches, and one of the most nicely trimmed interiors you'll find in a mainstream sports ute at this price point. Check one out, but be sure to check out the Mazda CX-9, Toyota Highlander, and especially the Buick Enclave too. Thanks for watching.